Hello, everyone, and welcome to 10-Minute Elections. As we are just days out from Election Day on Tuesday, November 3rd. This will probably be the final presidential forecast. Before the election, there will be a senatorial forecast shortly accompanying this. And you notice I left my map completely blank as opposed to when I usually fill in the safe states because I want to, if not just very briefly, talk about the safe states, give the states I really haven't talked about at all this year a little bit of airtime. So we will start with Hawaii. This is the bluest state in the union, although Washington, D.C. goes blue. Oh, sorry about that. Um, but Hawaii generally goes Democratic by about 50 points. It was a swing state about 2 decades ago, but not so much anymore. This is very safe blue territory. California, the biggest state in the union, and one of the bluest as well. Republicans barely crack 40 percent here. Oregon might actually be trending toward the Republicans. It might be, that's not to say it'll be a Republican state anytime soon, but it might be a likely in 2024, maybe 2028. But for now, it is a safe state, and Washington is well into that safe category. Going over to Alaska, 538 actually rates Alaska as a lean, but that is just because they use a different rating system than the standard rating system that I and a lot of other election forecasters use. They do it off of the percentages that they forecast are statistically probable for each candidate to win the state. For like, if Donald Trump has a 60% chance to win Alaska, it's going to only be a lean regardless of what the projected margin is. Whereas I rate my safe, likely, lean, and tilts by margin. So by that virtue, Alaska should crack that 5 point margin, which would make it a likely state under this rating system. All right. Idaho is a safe state. No really interesting elections here. I think Republicans should win both House seats. And in the state of Montana, Steve Bullock is still holding his own. Here he's pulling his weight. He is not expected to win. He's been being given by JHK a little over a 1 in 3 chance, roughly 35%, to win in Montana. You have Greg Gianforte and Mike Cooney in an interesting governor's race. Republicans are favored pretty much across the board, but Democrats, Kathleen Sebelius for the House as well. They're all still within striking distance in Montana, so it should be an interesting state to watch on Election Day. Wyoming, one of the reddest states in the union, along with West Virginia and sometimes Alabama. And then Utah, also definitely in that mix. It went for Mitt Romney by almost a clean 50 points in 2012, but it narrowed up substantially when Donald Trump he had trouble even getting to 50%. And he is expected to do somewhat of the same thing here, although he should win Utah by more than 2016 just by virtue of that there's no Evan McMullen in this race. Evan McMullen was a conservative alternative to Donald Trump, basically just running in Utah, though he picked up a few write-in votes elsewhere. The state of Nevada should crack the 5 point margin just because of national trends and what polling data there is here. This used to be a tough battleground state even in 2012, but Hillary Clinton was able to carry it in 2016 when Donald Trump was actually up point 0.3 in the polls on election day. But this is a state that's polls generally favor Republican, and they generally favor Republicans, and they do expect Joe Biden to win, so I'm chalking this up as a likely. Same with Colorado, but by more, and New Mexico is actually a safe state, and Ben Ray Lujan, I'm expecting to cruise to victory here as well. The state of Arizona, Joe Biden is up by a little over 3.5 percentage points in the polls. I think that in the RCP average anyway, and I think this is a pretty good indicator of what's going to happen on election day. I'm going to put this down as a lean Biden with a large margin of error, which means I'm not as confident that Biden will win Arizona as some other lean states you'll see later in the forecast. Moving down to the state of Texas, JHK now giving Joe Biden a 40% chance to win it. I'm not going to mark it as a tilt just yet. I think my final rating for Texas will be a lean, but it will be much more Democratic friendly, I think, in 2024. Joe Biden has a far better chance of winning in Texas than MJ Hager. JHK has Joe Biden at 40 compared to MJ Hager at only about a 13% chance to win in Texas. And judging off the polling data and demographic polls, I do think that is correct. I think Joe Biden has a great chance to win Texas, and Jay Hager has a chance. Oklahoma is going to be a safe state. Every county in the state of Oklahoma went for Donald Trump in 2016. That's only one of two states where that's true, the other one being West Virginia. But Kendra Horn actually won a suburban district, the Oklahoma's 5th district, in 2018, and she is being challenged very heavily because it's a deep red part of the country, but she is expected to make that race very competitive and potentially even win re-election. Kansas, generally a safe state. Roger Marshall should cruise to victory in the Senate. On the presidential level, the national averages as well as the limited polling data that is in Kansas just doesn't indicate that Donald Trump is going to hit that 15%. Expect around 11 or 12-point margin and mark this as a likely. And the state of Nebraska with its congressional districts, the at-large is safe, 1st district is safe, and the 3rd district is one of the most Republican areas in the country. The 2nd district, which earlier in the election cycle was projected by myself as lean Donald Trump, that is now up to a lean Biden. That's just that more urban and suburban area. Both Dakotas are safe. And moving over, we usually I think do the South first, so let's do the Rust Belt first. Iowa, I rated this first. I think it started the election cycle as a likely Trump, then a lean Trump, tilt Trump, toss up, then back to tilt. It is going back to toss up. The polls have just swung decisively in Joe Biden's favor over the past few weeks, enough for me to classify this as a toss up. I know JHK is actually favoring Joe Biden by a decent margin to win Iowa, Georgia as well. We'll get to Georgia later, but I'll leave Iowa gray here. I do genuinely think the state could go either way and prove a massive headache if Trump can't win, because what I've been talking about, Trump's path to the presidency here, is if Joe Biden wins all the Clinton states plus Michigan and Pennsylvania, Trump wins every other state. But obviously, if Joe Biden wins Iowa, or for that matter, any other competitive state besides the Clinton states plus Michigan plus Pennsylvania, Joe Biden will win the election, because Michigan and Pennsylvania plus the Clinton states get him up to 268. Iowa, for example, would get him up to 274. Ohio would get him up to 286. So there are a lot of options here, and Donald Trump really needs to win them all. Minnesota is going to be a likely state. Expect to see about a 7 or 8-point margin here. I know Amy Klobuchar's been working hard to get out the vote for Joe Biden in the state of Minnesota. Michigan is actually very similar to Minnesota. I know it went for Trump very narrowly by 0.23 percentage points in 2016. Don't expect that again. I'm looking at about a 6 or 7-point margin for Joe Biden. And Pennsylvania, I've always classified this as a lean, but recent polling data has indicated that a likely categorization would be more accurate. That doesn't mean the state won't be competitive, and I think this could prove a thorn in the side of Joe Biden on election night if he can't shore up working class support in cities like Scranton, as well as enough support on the western side of the state and enough voter turnout in urban areas. But polling data has indicated that this state should go by about 5 to 5.5 points, which does put it in that likely categorization. Wisconsin, a lot of the same demographics, but just even more of that white working class vote. I do expect the vote to be gotten out in places like Green Bay more. That was really Hillary Clinton's struggle in 2016. Voter turnout in Green Bay was very, very low, and was not expected to be so low. It should be higher this time. The voter registration numbers indicate that, so I am comfortable rating it as a lean, not a likely in Wisconsin. I know that some election forecasters were actually placing Wisconsin as a likely last year. I'm looking at maybe a 3-point margin for Joe Biden. Illinois is a safe state and should be safe for the Senate Minority Whip. Currently, Dick Durbin as well. Indiana, generally a safe state. Interesting state here, actually, because George Bush in 2004 won Indiana by, I think, over 10 points. Barack Obama actually won the state by 1.5 points, which puts it as a lean, not even a tilde, a lean margin in that 2008 election against John McCain, which was a modern landslide for Barack Obama. And then in 2012, Mitt Romney carried the state by 10 points. So the state has shown a certain swinginess, but I think we can expect to see about a Romney margin after Trump carried the state actually well into safe territory in 2016. I'm sorry, it's not going to be a Democratic state anytime soon. and it's trending red. Same thing with Ohio, although it is actually going to be a toss up. Our second toss up. I know this one used to be a toss up after starting the election cycle as a likely Republican. It is back to a toss up, and the voter registration numbers and get out the vote numbers look pretty good for Joe Biden, but this is a Republican state. I am comfortable classifying Ohio as a generically Republican state, so it remains to be seen how that plays out on Election Day. State of West Virginia used to be a Democratic stronghold, went for Bill Clinton by a safe margin. Al Gore barely lost it by a close, lean margin to George W. Bush. It's just turning rapidly red ever since. I know I talked in a previous video about how the Democrats' shift toward environmentalism has really turned away a lot of West Virginia because their economy is really heavily based on that mining industry. And often some of those Democratic policies maybe aren't perceived as so good for that. And sometimes they aren't. So West Virginia is going to be a safe Republican. Kentucky, I think McGrath will be fairly competitive. She shouldn't win. McConnell is still up in the polls, although she has kept them close, and her fundraising is definitely there. She's matching McConnell pretty much in terms of fundraising, which is pretty impressive considering that McConnell's the Senate Majority Leader. So obviously, if McConnell thought that seat was in danger, cash would be flooding into Kentucky for Leader McConnell. But for now, it's still a safe state on the presidential level, and we'll get to the senatorial election later. Same thing with Tennessee, although some of the younger population in places like Memphis and Nashville could turn make Tennessee competitive decades down the road. I don't think it'll be competitive this election or in the next one, certainly. The state of Missouri is a lot like Kansas. It used to be, the Missouri bellwether. It only went against the election winner once in a century from 1904 to 2004, but it did go for John McCain in 2008, which pretty much put an end to that. Made it a red state. If you're going for John McCain in 2008, you're probably a red state, and this should be a likely Donald Trump. Expect to see about a 10-point margin in Missouri. Arkansas is safe. Louisiana is actually right on that border of 15 points. I think we can expect to see a 14-point margin or so here, which puts it as a very red likely. Um, it's hard to say because the polling data isn't really there in Louisiana because Donald Trump is heavily expected to win. But obviously 14 points is not 15, so this state is going to be a likely in my projection. And the same thing with Mississippi, although Mississippi has been likely for a while. Alabama is safe. Doug Jones, I'm not expecting to win, but the polling data looks very good for. There really isn't even much presidential polling data here, and the only reason the Senate race is intrigue is because there is a Democratic incumbent in Alabama. The state of Florida, I've been marking this one as in blue for a while. It's actually been trending a little bit toward Donald Trump, but the lead here is still enough. It's well over 2 points that I'm still comfortable classifying it as a close lean blue. Expect to see about a 1.5-point margin for Joe Biden here, maybe pushing on 2. I think it'll be in the close lean categorization. And in the state of Georgia, JHK actually rates this as a tilt Democrat. I'm going to still rate it as a toss-up because it is the state of Georgia, and frankly, I think we need to see it go Democratic, even when Stacey Abrams wasn't winning in 2018. But the demographic numbers and the demographic shifts look fairly favorable to Democrats, and the large voter numbers in urban areas such as Atlanta. If Joe Biden wins this state, it will cement Georgia as a toss-up state, or even a blue-leaning toss-up state, a blue-leaning battleground state for the foreseeable future. So I'm leaving it as a toss-up. The state of South Carolina is proving to be a major headache for Republicans because Lindsey Graham might actually lose. Donald Trump is looking a little safer. Donald Trump isn't quite as unpopular in the state as Lindsey Graham is, so sorry, it's not a Democratic state. That's for sure. It's definitely going to be a likely Republican, but honestly, I think we can expect to see about the same margin for Republicans in South Carolina as Democrats in Minnesota or even Michigan, which I never thought I would say just a few months ago. State of North Carolina. This one has gone back from Democratic to toss up. I'll never lean Democratic. I don't think there might have been one projection in there. I'm not quite sure, but it's always been between tilt Democratic and toss up. I think in my last projection it was a toss up. I don't know if that one went on YouTube or not, but it is the polling data is a little bit actually more consistent than it has been pretty much all election season, and it is very narrowly in the favor of Joe Biden by about a percentage point, which would a percentage point would actually make it a lean Democrat, but the inconsistency is just enough to where I'm not going to rate it as a lean Democrat. I'm going to go ahead and keep it as a tilt, with Virginia, a former heavily contested battleground state, being a likely. We're almost finished here. I know I'm way over 10 minutes. We're kind of ditching that because I'm going through every state. DC, I think we can expect to see Joe Biden win over 95% of the vote here. Maryland, there's an interesting House race to replace Elijah Cummings' seat. The Democrat should win. It's a heavily blue district, but that's really the only race of intrigue. Here, besides the Orioles in the wild card race this season, which I think surprised everyone, Delaware, the state that Joe Biden served in the Senate for a long time, and New Jersey, which the two competitive House races in New Jersey, Jeff Van Drew's seat, the Democrat turned Republican, and Andy Kim, Democratic. I think for the first time this election cycle, those are both projected to go to the Democrats, which would leave the state of New Jersey with only two Republicans representing it in the House, which is how it was at the beginning of this past congressional season. State of Connecticut and Rhode Island, I would say, well, actually, Rhode Island will lose a representative. It'll go down to 3. The population just isn't there to get it proportionally that second representative, so it will go down to just 1 representative. And Massachusetts, with Ed Markey emerging victorious in that primary. I was a bit surprised there, but he's going to win on election day, so he will be re-elected to the U.S. Senate. Um, the state of New York. No, I don't think there are any super competitive races here. There are a couple of House races, but overall, the state is safe. Blue will be for a very long time on the presidential level. The last time it went Republican was in the Bush years. The Bush one, not even Bush two. State of Vermont is also one of the bluest states in the union. Bernie Sanders' home state. New Hampshire, again, the polls for Donald Trump are just so bad here that I don't see any way. Donald Trump was actually very briefly by The Economist, only The Economist, which now gives Joe Biden much better than a 90% chance to win the election. This was projected to go narrowly to Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton won it by less than 1,000 votes, but the polls are just so bad for Donald Trump here that I don't see how I can classify it as a lean. That's been my argument for some time. Maine at large is also a likely state. The first district of Maine, the urban part, is safe, and Maine, always known for bucking the electoral rules, very white, very rural, over 95% of both, but it is not safe Republican territory, as you might expect. It's represented by a Democrat, although not a party line Democrat, Jared Golden, and I am expecting it to go narrowly to the Democratic Party. I will mark it as a tilt. All right. Thank y'all so much for watching this video. I know it's been a long recording, so thank y'all for bearing with me. Call it 19-minute elections. And I will see y'all in the next few days for a Senate projection video. All right. Stay safe and please vote if you can. If you can still register to vote and you're not, please do so. And know how you're gonna vote, when you're gonna vote. If you've already voted, that's fantastic. You get brownie points. I look forward to seeing you all in that Senate projection video and at the polls on election day.